Hello, everyone. It's me, Nigel Seeley. Welcome along to the latest edition of Betting Weekly Game Bet Match, the tennis betting podcast brought to you in association with Bet Rivers, your hometown sportsbook. We're reaching the latter stages now in 3 tournaments on a bumper week on the ATP Tour. It's ATP Tour 250 events in Bastad over in Switzerland. Oh, sorry, that is in Sweden, sorry. Gstaad over in Switzerland and Newport over in Rhode Island in America. And joining me to look ahead to, we've highlighted 6 matches for you tomorrow, is our senior ATP Tour handicapper. It's Sean Calvert. Sean, a busy week, lots of action going on. Good evening to you. We're a little bit later than usual today, a little bit of action. Before we go into the bets you got this week and the matches you want to talk about for tomorrow, let's just talk about the conditions. And I know that a lot of people have messaged me about how they like the idea of the conditions and the breaking down of the elements of what we've seen. What you've seen so far in Bastad, is it what you expected? Is it slower? Is it quicker? Is there any sort of advantage for anybody playing in Bastad over in Sweden?
Still waiting for the stats to come through. Actually, there's only stats from the first 3 games, which 3 matches, shall I say, which is not really very useful. From my own sort of watching of the matches, it still looks pretty slow. I mean, it's one of the slowest clay court tournaments of the year. And now, if you remember when I talked at the start of the week about the rain, it hasn't really materialized. The forecast was, it wasn't so much wrong, but I think it was delayed. So the rain that they said there was going to be coming this week in Bastad and Gstaad and over most of Europe actually is going to be next week, which is incidentally when we're in Hamburg. So has got a roof, the Rothenbaum, by the way. So I should imagine we'll be sat under that roof quite a bit next week. As far as Bastad's concerned, Bastad, should I say, Friday looks fine. And then rain's going to be setting in for the week. So Saturday, Sunday, sort of semi-final, finals day, that could be affected by the rain. So you might be in a situation where some players have to play twice in a day. We just don't know. Depends how heavy and sort of frequent that rain is. But yeah, slow conditions in Bastad. It's one of the slowest of the year.
Now, with the possibility of someone playing 2 matches in a row, we look at the age. Look at the age of players. Younger players, older players. Is that sort of an advantage for a younger player? I know a handicapper who messaged me the other day and mentioned about looking at players who are younger. And he reckons that the younger players under the age of like 26, 27 are beating the guys a bit older in these kind of conditions. I don't know if it's something you have ever thought about when you are handicapping these kind of tournaments.
Yes, I wouldn't say it's necessarily age, although that's obviously the case if you've got guys like 35, 36, 37. I tend to look at their fitness record, how they've got on, whether they consistently keep breaking down with injuries, or not. Someone like a Holger Rune who was playing today in Hopman Cup, clearly not fit, played anyway for whatever reason. I would look at their fitness records, yeah, and also their motivation, because there's Hamburg next week, which is a big tournament. If you look at the record of Bastad, it actually features most underdog winners in the quarterfinals, semi-finals, and the final. 51% of underdogs win in quarterfinals in Bastad, 56% in semis, and 56% in the final. So that suggests to me that some players, once they've got to that latter stage, they've had a couple of matches under their belt, they think, well, okay, I'm not that bothered about winning this title. I'm going to head over for next week. So a lot of motivation as well. If a player you think has got an obvious motivation, maybe he's a home player or whatever, then yeah, there's a lot of factors to sort of take into consideration when the weather does, affect things.
We do know the quarterfinals tomorrow in Bastad, and we have 2 matches we want to talk about. The 2 matches the lines are going to come up a little bit later. Casper Ruud, the number 1 seed against Offner, and Zverev, the number 5 seed against Rublev, which is probably the most eagerly anticipated quarterfinal of the 4 matches in play. The first match we're going to speak about is Francisco Cerundolo, who's a very heavy favourite against Federico Correa in a all Argentinian battle. Francisco Cerundolo has a very, very heavy. He doesn't have a very heavy. It's the other player. It's Correa's a very heavy head-to-head record. Yeah, he's 6-2 up. I saw the record. All of the matches on clay. The last time they met was in 2023. Correa won. But obviously Cerundolo retired in the second set. Cerundolo here is minus 295. Federico Correa is plus 230. The head-to-head is very much in favour of Correa. If you look to the Bet Rivers website, they have the spread here at 3.5. Korea plus 3.5 at plus 128. This is a man who has a 6-2 head-to-head winning record, and the total is 20.5. How do you see this one? I mean, Serendulu has had some sort of played a lot of tennis this year, a lot of action. Could be a little bit tired. We've seen a lot of players withdrawing, a lot of players' fitness concerns about them, and it could be a sort of a time of year where you might want to fade the favourites.
Yeah, as I said, there's a long and storied history of underdogs winning quite a lot in Bastad. I think roughly 40% of them win overall. As I said, 51% in the last 9 editions have won in the quarterfinals of Bastad. Serendolo is obviously the defending champion. We had him last year, didn't we, at 60-1. He was nowhere near that price this year, was he? This is an interesting one. Correa actually proposed to his girlfriend on the beach the other day, just as a matter of interest.
That's him finished. That's him done.
Well, this was before he started, and then he beat my guy Baez in the first round. Baez was awful that day, but you've got, in these slow conditions, you've got to beat Correa. He just makes ball after ball after ball after ball, and eventually, against a lot of players, they just miss one, which is what happened to Baez. Although he still should have won that match. He was 4-2 up in the final set tiebreak, still managed to lose it. Correa's former finalist here. I think he lost to Casper Ruud a few years ago. But I mean, I think when you're looking at this head-to-head, it's a while ago. I mean, the last 2 wins for Correa, as you've said, have been by way of retirement. The last time they met, Serendolo was number 116 in the world, and he was a 2.31 plus 131 underdog. That was in 2021. You know, times have changed since then. I think this is a match that I'd be tempted to look at the overs, because the way Serendolo plays, he is quite inconsistent. If he plays his A game for 2 sets, I imagine he'll win. But he doesn't tend to do that very often. And Correa, as I said, makes you play a lot of balls that a lot of players they just tap out of some of these rallies, because it's just monotonous with Correa. If you've ever seen him play, there's nothing flashy about it. It's just make a ball, and wait for the other guy to miss. It's a match that Serendolo should win. It's all on Serendolo's racket. It's just a question of how he shapes up on this particular day. For me, I think the betting angles, as I said, over games is 20.5 the line you said?
Yeah.
That's certainly of interest. But I think I'd probably be tempted by the 2-1 to Serendolo. I think he'll get it done eventually. But I suspect he'll have a set where he goes off the ball and Correa will be only too happy to mop up the pieces. That's a plus 270 chance with Bet Rivers.
Plus 270. There's 28 different markets available on the Bet Rivers website. This match starts quite early as well, so head to the Bet Rivers website to make sure. So this match here starts at 3:30 local time, so that'll be around about 10:30 a.m. Eastern over in the States. So Korea Serendulu is the first match we talk about. The next match we're going to talk about is Musetti against Misolic, Austrian.
Misolic, I think, yeah.
Misolic, yeah, you're much better than me on these pronunciations. This is a very early
I just
start.
sound like I know what I'm talking about.
No, you do.
I'm just assuming Misolic is correct.
I struggle all the time with these names. But anyway, Misolic, it's a 6 a.m. start. So it's the first match on court. It's 11 o'clock local time here. And Misolic is someone that I don't really know much about, but I've actually bet him in the last 2 rounds and I've actually won. I bet him against Lajovic because I thought Lajovic may have a bit of a hang up over his Wimbledon form when he got beat by Choinski. And then
chicken pox as well, didn't he?
Yeah, and then I bet him in his last round match as well, but it was a real end-to-end match against Kovalic. And I think here he's plus 460. He's up against Lorenzo Musetti's minus 670. We know the head-to-head is 0, and we also know that the world ranking here, Musetti is ranked 16, and the Austrian is 139th in the world ranking. But minus 670 does seem to me a little bit disrespectful when you consider that what Misolic has done coming through this qualification, again through the qualification to the main draw. The handicap here is 5.5, minus 5.5. Musetti's plus 105. Misolic is minus 134. And the total does seem very low here at 19.5 with over quite a warm favourite at minus 130. I'm quite interested in the underdog here, not necessarily on the to win market, but I'm looking at maybe the over the games, the handicap, possibly even Musetti to win 2-1. Are you in the same kind of thinking, or you think that the Italian gets the job done pretty easy?
I think it depends what sort of frame of mind Musetti's in. You know, he's a former Hamburg fact, he's defending Hamburg champion, isn't he? Next
Mm-hmm.
week, and that would sort of set a few alarm bells ringing for me about a player going deep the week before he's got to defend a bigger title next week. So
That
I
is a
wouldn't put
big
anybody off.
factor.
Yeah, I think it
Do you
is.
think that's a big factor in terms of your handicapping, Sean? Generally, when you look at the players the week ahead, is it really?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's something that I do look at, and more on the outrights really than the sort of match bets. But it can apply to the match bets as well. I mean, this one is a case in point. To be honest, I think Mislic has been a little bit fortunate this week in some of his matches. He got bageled by the world number 365 in qualies, and then in his next match in qualies, he only had to play 1 point. Damir Dzuma had enough after 1 point, probably the earliest retirement in tennis history. So he didn't have to play that match, obviously. The Dusan Lajovic match, Lajovic was 4-2 up in the first set, and then he had a set point in the second set. So that could have gone Lajovic's way easily. He was a couple of points away from a straight sets loss against Kovalik. Yeah, I think he's ridden his luck a little bit, but if you look at his stats, of the two main draw matches that he's played, 46% second serve points won. Not great. I think he's been relying on the first serve quite a bit. He's won a healthy, very healthy 78% of first serve points in his couple of main draw matches here this week. Not really breaking enough, 17%, but those sort of stats tend to lead me towards the overs. I didn't think Musetti was great in his opening match, as you would probably expect from a guy that's played quite a bit on grass this summer, and it's coming over to the clay. There is that lingering feeling, isn't there, that Musetti might just be using this as a warm up for next week. That would worry me if I happen to be a sort of short price backer of Musetti. I'd probably go overs here if I was betting on this match. I'm not wild about Mislic, to be honest, but I think Musetti will do well to put him away, sort of 6-3, 6-3. I think he'll do very well to do that.
Yeah, I like the 19.5 over here. I think that's a good bet. And you can also obviously go to the BetRivers website and move that up to 20.5, 21.5, a bit more juice in your price, because the 19.5 or 20.5 isn't really much different. So you might get a better price on that. But I think Musetti has it quite tough against Mislic. Minus 670 of the Italian is something that is a bet that I really want to get involved in. Let's move across now. We've gone from Sweden across now. We're going to Switzerland to Gstaad. And again, we have 4 quarterfinals. We've only got prices on 2 of them because the last 2 quarterfinals have just been announced while we just before we've recorded this. We've got Bergs against Kekmanovic, which is a game we're going to come up. We have Virillas against Ramos Vinolis, which we don't have prices on. Kachin against Munar, which is a very interesting one because Munar leads 6-0 on the head-to-head against Kachin. Yeah, and we have Hanferman against Hamad Medjikovic. And let's start with that game. Hanferman against Medjikovic. The odds here are minus 180 for the German, who was the pre-tournament favourite, against Medvedev, who's been a bit of a surprise package here. He's plus 143. If you look at the clay court record for them both, Hanferman is 29-12 in 2023. Medvedev is 19-6. Medvedev has had a really, really good run here. He's come through 2 tough qualifying matches. He beat Dominic Thiem. We touched on that match last time we spoke. And he's in good form here. And again, this potentially could be a difficult match for the favourite here. But before we go on about the odds, we'll come on to the odds in a minute. The conditions again, Sean, what's it like? What are your thoughts about it? Is your pre-tournament and expectations of how the conditions are, how you thought they would be, or is there anything you want to change here? The weather looks quite good here.
It does at the minute, but this supposed thunderstorms that they've been talking about all week are now meant to be coming tomorrow. They're about 4 or 5 days late, 3 or 4 days late from what they originally predicted. So the thing with thunderstorms, though, if it just misses the area, it's going to be fine. You don't really know. As far as the conditions are concerned, the stats that I've got for this season's edition of Gstaad is pretty typical. 80% service holds, 72% first serve points won. It's as we thought, because the rain hasn't affected things yet at all. There's a couple of tiny drops or something, but it's been pretty hot, pretty warm. The thunderstorms have completely passed by the area, which is fortunate for the tournament. So conditions are as you normally expect: quick, altitude. The kick serve is a big weapon. It's a court you can hit winners on. It's it's quick conditions as per normal.
So nothing's really changed there. Hanferman is minus 180. Medvedev is plus 143. If you look at the handicap, it's 2.5. Hanferman minus 2.5 is minus 115. Medvedev is minus plus 2.5 is minus 110. The total is very high, 22.5. Hanfman has obviously been involved in some long matches, and Medvedev has been involved in a very long match against Dominic Thiem. I think
here was enough for me, was it? Hanfman, we had a tiebreak, didn't we? It ended up being 7-5 in the third.
It was going well. But the point here is that we're playing at altitude here in the games. If you look at the total games, they've been quite high, and there's been a lot of long matches in terms of first sets and second sets over 9.5. I'd over 10.5 has been cashing as well. So do you think that should continue here, the trend here?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I thought so in Hanfman's match against Altmaier. I think that was very unlucky. I think that was an excellent price that Bet Rivers put up there, 2.65. I think it was about a tiebreak in the match. They should probably have been one in set 1 and set 3, but they managed to put in a bad service game. Hanfman in the first set, Altmaier in the third set, both failed at the business end of the set, which was annoying. I wasn't that impressed with Hanfman off the ground against Altmaier. Only won 40% of his second serve points, but the other side of that is that it was his first match at altitude coming from the grass. It's not easy to adjust. The ball does fly a lot. So tough for him. When he won that first match, he said, predictably, I love this court. Every year I look forward to this tournament. It's one of my absolute favourite spots. And we know he goes well here. He's a 6-3 win-loss, Hanfman. 89% holds a serve at this tournament in those 9 matches. And a service points won, return points won, total of 103. So, as we expect, Hanfman is effective. Medvedev, bit of a new kid on the block, plenty of power, can get a bit emotional. He certainly got a bit fraught during that Dominic Thiem match. I mentioned about that match, didn't I? I said Medvedev was in with a decent chance, but I just didn't feel the prize was quite attractive enough. In the end, I was probably a bit greedy on that, and he did win this Dominic Thiem renaissance. It's not happening. It's not happening. It may happen at some point, but I'm not convinced. Medvedev was a little bit fortunate on the stats actually to win. He won 6 fewer points in the match, but you could also argue that Thiem only won 25% of his second serve points. And again, his standard wasn't the same as it was the previous round against Muller. I think this will be tight. Medvedev has got a good kick serve. He's got decent power, similar sort of play to Hanfman, really similar sort of power levels. I can see why it's 22.5. I'd be tempted with either the over 22.5 or again tie-break play, which I think is a plus 150 chance with Bet Rivers. I think it's going to be a tight one with serves dominating.
It does look that way. So head to the Bet Rivers website. Obviously, if you do place a bet on the Bet Rivers website, you will be able to live stream all these tournaments from the comfort of your own home on your tablet or your phone. And this is an early start. Again, it's 5:30 a.m. Eastern time. Let's move on to the next match. And this is quite an interesting one. It's Zizou Bergs up against Mimor Kekmanovic. I watched the Zizou Bergs match the other day against who was it? He played the Russian guy. I can't remember his name now.
Jerry. Then he played Rodionov.
Rodionov. And it went on for ages, and it was a real topsy-turvy game. Bergs put a lot of energy into that. Rodionov got a blister on his hand or cut his hand, and suddenly the game changed a little bit. The match changed a little bit.
He could have won it, really, Rodionov, but I'll talk about that in a minute.
He should have done. But Bergs has come through. He beat our pick, Jerry. He got come through 2 qualifying matches. And he's reached the quarterfinals at an ATP tournament for the very first time, and he's plus 180 to progress through to the semi-finals. Kekmanovic is minus 230. Obviously, Kekmanovic is a much more proven opponent. This is a 4:30 a.m. Eastern time start. Kekmanovic is minus 230, as I said. The spread here is 3.5. Kekmanovic minus 3.5, minus 103. Bergs plus 3.5 is minus 125, and the total again is 22.5. I'm not quite sure whether Bergs can keep that energy going. I think he looked absolutely exhausted after that game against Rodionov, which I watched. And I think Kekmanovic I think Kekmanovic could possibly win this quite easily. I don't know if you agree on that or not.
Yeah, I think it does depend how much he's got left in the tank. He's obviously played a lot more this week than Kekmanovic has. Kekmanovic's only played 2 sets. Just briefly on that Rodionov match, Bergs did nick it, really. He won 5 points fewer in the match. He won 8% fewer first serve points, 6% fewer second serve points, 5% fewer return points, and he won the match. So sometimes that's how it goes. It's not the statistics of how many points you win, but the ones you do at the right time. And he obviously did. He won the big points at the right time, which is all you need to do. But a little bit of burglary on the stats, really. Kekmanovic, as I've said before, is a champion at altitude. Previously, won Kitzbühel on the clay at slightly less altitude than this a couple of years ago, 2020, I think it was. He dealt with Stricker pretty well in the opening match, which I thought would be a tough one for Kekmanovic. But Stricker didn't serve well at all. Stricker's big serve in these conditions, is aggressive game. That's what Stricker's all about. And he only made 43% of his first serve points. Stricker wasn't enough, nowhere near enough to beat Kekmanovic, who he's a tough character to kind of pick, isn't he? Kekmanovic. He's a bit up and down. It's a difficult one. If you look at his if we just quickly look at Berg's first of all at main level, all surfaces last 12 months, he's 2-7 win-loss and his service points won, return points won total of 97. So you can see he's got work to do at this level. He mainly plies his trade on the challenger circuit at the moment, but he's been tipped by a few people to be a decent player in the future. Kekmanovic, very average stats: 27 wins, 28 losses, and a total service points won, return points won total of 100. Again, not great, but all right, better than Berg's. Certainly a better player at the moment, so you would expect him to win this match. But I also looked at what he's done when he's been priced up between 1.41 and 1.5 at main level. That's between -244 and -200. He's not overly reliable. 12-10 win-loss, and he's lost his last three, Kekmanovic. So not a favourite you would normally want to be backing in this sort of price range. I think he'll win it, Kekmanovic, but I don't think I could win. I don't think I could bet him at that price. Bergs has held serve 91% of the time so far this week in his 4 matches. So it could take Kekmanovic a little while. I think he's definitely the better player off the ground. I've not been that impressed with Bergs off the ground, away from that serve, and you can get him into the rallies. His second serve points, I think he's vulnerable. Kekmanovic should win it, but I wouldn't bet him, I don't think.
No, I think it was a difficult one. Bergs, we see what he's got, but he did look exhausted in that match. That long match. Let's move across to Newport, America, Rhode Island, grass court event. John Isner against Tommy Paul in the battle of the Americans. But before we talk about that match, which is an intriguing match, what are the conditions like, Sean? Is it fast? Is it slower than Wimbledon? Is it quick? Well, judging by the people who've got through, it looks quite quick.
No, it's not quick. It's
surprising when we think John Isner's got through, Tommy Paul's got through, Kevin Anderson was doing well in the tournament as well.
It's a tournament that, if you serve him big like Isner, like Anderson, on pretty much any surface, you're going to hold a lot of the time. Even on the clay, Isner's done well on the clay. Off the ground in the rallies, it's not particularly quick. It's almost got like a bit of a dead bounce. It bounces sort of quite low. It's quite slow. I mean, it averages 81% holds, 74.6% first serve points won. That puts it around about the same speed as sort of Eastbourne, maybe Wimbledon, but it's quite an unusual conditions. It takes a while to get used to it. It's a peculiar type of grass. It's not the easiest surface to get used to, but John Isner has certainly got used to it over the years, but not the quickest. But if you look at the last 7 winners, as I said, Cressy, Anderson, Isner, Johnson, Isner, Karlovic, it tends to be a surface that it rewards the big servers, but I wouldn't say it was ostensibly quick, no.
Let's have a look at his match. John Isner's the underdog here, plus 175. He does lead the head-to-head 2-0. The last time they met was in 2020. Isner won 2-1 with a tie-break, which is no surprise in the first set. In 2017, they won before in Cincinnati. Isner won 6-3, 6-3. But obviously, Tommy Paul is a very, very different opponent now. He's 225 to win this match, and he's a decent favourite on the handicap. And the total here is very high. I haven't got it in front of me. Let me just, my computer just frozen. But the
Probably
total here is 24 and a half.
24 and a half, okay.
Minus 118 for over, minus 107 for under. And the handicap here, or the spread, is 2.5. Tommy Paul giving up 2.5, minus 106, with Isner minus 120. Isner's record is fantastic. Paul has been a favourite that we can't trust over the last few weeks. He's played a lot of tennis. Can Isner get the job done here at plus 175?
I've taken him, I took him at 2.8 earlier on today. I'm taking a bit of a risk on Isner's fitness because he has been struggling a bit in recent times with a foot problem that he's had. I think he seems to be over that now, though. If we just look at Tommy Paul against big servers, the big servers that I've got listed as such in my database, he's 3-8 win-loss in completed matches, 3 wins, 8 losses. And in those matches, he's won 30% of return points. So he struggled against big servers. He played Milos Raonic, a very less than fit Milos Raonic at Wimbledon, who was running on fumes, had barely played for 2 years, and he won it, Tommy Paul, but he sort of struggled through it in 4 close sets. It wasn't easy for him. If you look at the 2 matches he's played against John Isner, he's won an astonishingly low 23% of return points. So he's barely getting anything on the John Isner serve. The question is, for bettors and for myself, is John Isner still capable of somewhere near his best level? If he is, I think he's an excellent bet here. And I've taken the chance that he is. If we look at Isner's stats in Newport, 27-6 win-loss in his career, 94% holds of serve. The service points won and return points won total of 107. He's actually won, this will probably surprise some people, he's actually won 33% of return points at this tournament. That's compared to a career average on grass of all main level tournaments of 29.6%. So he returns 3.5-4% better here in Newport than he does elsewhere, the other grass court tournaments. And I think that's because it is slightly slow. It does give him an extra second or so on the return. He's not at his best, I don't think, in lightning quick conditions, Isner, because you can just move him around too much, and it's not suitable for him. That's why he's gone well on clay over the years, because he does have that extra time to get his return game going. Just check the 2 matches that he's played this week in terms of stats. Again, he's won 33% of return points and 91% holds of serve. Experience, I think, is on this court is a big thing in Newport. It is slightly unique conditions. Tommy Paul's only played 1 match here, which was against the youngster Quinn the other day, so he's not used to conditions. And Isner's won 78% of his tiebreaks in Newport over his career. So I think if Isner's got enough left, he does tend to play his best when he's comfortable. Like when he got to the final of Dallas, which is around the corner from his house. Here, he's very, very comfortable. Not so much the tour grind for him these days. Happy to take Isner at that price, yeah, for sure.
Isner can produce his form. It's definitely going to be on this court. This is definitely his tournament where he's had a fantastic record. He's plus 175 with Bet Rivers to beat the inconsistent Tommy Paul. The final match we're going to talk about is Mackenzie McDonald up against Alex Michelsen. Mackenzie McDonald's minus 177. Michelsen is plus 143. I don't really know much about Michelsen. He's 190 in the world, but one thing I do know about him, he's on great form. He won the Chicago Challenger. He's come through 2 matches here, beat Cressy and Duckworth, 2 very, very capable grass court players. And you have Mackenzie McDonald, who coming into this tournament hasn't been in the greatest form. Lost in the first round at Wimbledon. He reached the semi-finals at Eastbourne, but his Wimbledon defeat against Bublik was a disappointment for him here. But he's 170, he's minus 177. The handicap is 2.5, minus 112. McDonald's minus 113. Michelsen receiving 2.5, and the total is 22.5.
Yeah, you said it there. McDonald, very inconsistent player. Difficult one to call. He lost to Schwartzman and then beat Fritz on grass this summer. I mean, what can you say about that? I mean, Fritz hasn't got a great grass court summer, but losing to Schwartzman and then beating Fritz is unusual. Should have made the final at Eastbourne on the grass, Mackenzie McDonald, but managed to fail somehow from a set and 4-1 up against Francisco Cerundolo. If you look at what he's done on grass at main level this season, it's decent. 6-4 win-loss. And a 101 service points, 1 return points, 1 total, a whole break total of 100. Yeah, decent, but not fabulous. As you said, Michelsen's coming off a title win at the Chicago Challenger. I think this potentially could be a big factor. He's only 18 years old, not used to playing this amount of tennis, just winning a Challenger, and then immediately a couple of days later on a different surface as well, playing at main level, winning a couple of matches. I think his legs are going to go, to be honest. Unless the adrenaline carries him through, I would suggest that he's going to have to really dig deep into his energy reserve. He doesn't have the biggest of serves anyway. Michelsen, which isn't ideal for Newport, as I listed the earlier previous winners earlier on. They're all sort of big servers. It's a match that McDonald should be winning at the respective stages of the careers that they're at. Again, I looked at McDonald in this price range when he's been priced between 1.51 and 1.69, which is minus 196 and minus 145 in American. His record is all right, 12-7 win-loss, pretty decent, but he has lost 3 of his last 5. So it's a bit of an enigma, McDonald. I think he'll win it, and probably aided by fitness. Maybe 2-1. That was a 3.75 plus 275 chance of Bet Rivers. That's perhaps what I'd be looking at there. It's one that McDonald should win, really.
McDonald should win. Isner's our outsider. What are your official picks, Sean, for the 6 matches we talked about?
I'm just taking this as my one official play.
Just one
just
official
to win the match,
play out of the 6 matches we have in Bastad, Gstaad, and Newport. John, isn't it? Plus 175 to beat Tommy Paul. Remember, there's 4 ways to follow us here on Betting Weekly Game Match. Download the podcast, Betting Weekly Game Bet Match, on your preferred podcast provider. Follow us on our YouTube channel at the Bet Rivers Network, and give us a follow as well on our Twitter and our Instagram page at Because We Win. Myself and Sean are going to have a little bit of a break now until Sunday. We'll be back on Sunday looking ahead to the tournament in Hamburg. And next week, we'll be on our Instagram account from Hamburg in Germany, giving the best bet. Sean, have a great weekend in the rain. Take your umbrella. Take care, everyone. All the best. Nigel.